Nonprofit professionals, have you thought about using gift cards? They're especially helpful this time of year. Think holiday gifts for the whole team, year end bonuses, and even direct support to families in need around the holidays. Charity Charge has a free gift card program just for nonprofits with no sign-up fees or ordering minimums. Text or email a digital card for face value, no extra cost, or ship a physical card if you prefer. Let our team support your year end projects and save money on your gifting. Visit charitycharge.com to learn more and beat the holiday rush. Now, on to the episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight series hosted by Charity Charge. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are absolutely pleased to be joined by Emily Acevedo. She is the executive director of the Butte Humane Society, and they're doing incredible work out there. Emily, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. And I would love if you could set the stage a little bit and tell myself and our audience about the work and mission of your organization.
Absolutely. Butte Humane Society is one of the oldest nonprofits in Butte County. We are in Chico, California, and we are a limited admission humane society that works to shelter animals, prepare them for adoption, as well as we have a variety of programs to support already owned animals in our community, including a full service veterinary center, pet food pantry, and different education programs to help educate the next generation of animal welfare enthusiasts.
I love that. And another thing that stood out when we last talked is that there's idea of this limited admission shelter. Can you speak a little bit more to what that means and maybe some of the misconceptions about what your shelter is compared to some, the public kind of view of what shelters, how they fill gaps?
Absolutely. So, in the animal welfare world, there is a wide spectrum of shelters. There are some that are brick and mortar, that are some that are foster based. And so, we kind of fall in the middle of that as a limited admission, or sometimes we're also referred to as a managed admission shelter. We are a private nonprofit, and so we don't have any municipal contracts. So, sometimes city or county shelters will be contracted with the municipality to provide services specific to stray hold. They may also have adoption programs, safekeeping for animals. And where we fall in that as a shelter that does not have those contracts is we actually legally are not allowed to participate at all in strays. So if you find a stray, we're happy to direct you on where to go, but we cannot intake that stray.
Mm.
They have to go to the shelter that's mandated to do the stray hold. And they're also the ones who are going to attempt to reunify with an owner. Where we really play a role is that we partner with local shelters who are open admission or those ones that have the municipal contracts to intake animals to help reduce their euthanasia rates. But we also provide availability for owners who have to surrender. And one of the big challenges facing animal shelters everywhere right now is that those shelters that do have stray hold contracts are so over capacity with strays that they don't have the bandwidth at all to work in owner surrenders. And that's where we really fill a big need in Northern California as well.
I love that. So this idea of capacity building for the kind of overall shelter framework for Chico, and kind of also then reducing, the euthanasia of kind of dogs and pets across the city as well.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a tough topic to talk about. It's not something that anybody in animal welfare enjoys, but it is the reality. Kennel space is finite. And so when these open admission shelters are at the point that they are at capacity, they really
Mandated
need
to
partners like
take
us.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to do it. So if we can help alleviate that by taking adoptable animals from those shelters and into our program, getting them spayed and neutered and getting them adopted out, that's a good way that we can provide support. And the municipal shelters have a really challenging and hard job. And so we looked at, where is the gap and how can we fill that? And ultimately, what it leads to is helping more animals. And I think that that's a win for any community that has an animal welfare need, which is every community.
100%. I thank you for that context. And you're right. It's a difficult topic. Yeah, it's a really important industry though to support kind of our communities, in every city across the United States. I would love, you also mentioned this clinic that you'll also have at the Butte Humane Society. Can you speak a little bit more to to how that works and also how it can also provide this earned revenue source for your organization as well?
Absolutely. So, because we just like to be different, I guess, you see a lot of humane societies or shelters that have veterinary clinics or they'll offer, vaccine day or spay and neuter day. And because we are limited in mission, one of the things that we needed to have regularly was vet care available to our shelter animals, primarily to provide spay and neuter. And so that's how our clinic got started. And we looked at what are the basic needs of pet owners in the community. They need to have accessible, affordable spay and neuter. We want to be able to provide vaccines so that we have a community of healthy and protected animals. And our veterinary center really grew from there. So the way that we look at it is that if we can generate revenue through our veterinary center, we really strive to be affordable for the average pet owner. So if you feel like you can't access the care that you need for your pet, you're going to look at surrendering them. And that's what a lot of people do. But the opposite end of that is then a shelter like us has to do the medical care to get these pets ready for adoption. And that becomes something that we have to fundraise additional monies for. So if we could create a scenario where pet owners can afford to access the care that their pets need, and we can get our veterinarians educating people on how to be proactive about pet care from a young age so that you don't have these catastrophic medical situations happening just simply due to lack of care. That's really important to us. And the spay and neuter aspect is really important to us as well. And so our pricing model is set up to where we have opportunities for people who cannot afford to have their animals spayed and neutered. We have a program where you can apply to get a cost covered spay and neuter. But if you can afford to pay for that, one of the really great things about it is you're going to get affordable prices from us. You're going to get really good quality care. Our veterinarians are incredible. And the money that you're spending at our veterinary center is going right back into our organization to support medical needs of shelter animals and the rest of our programs. And so it's a win win because we're able to meet the needs of community members who already own and love their pets and need good quality, but also accessible medical care and turn that into okay, now we're able to also have a way to bring in funds to care for our shelter pets outside of just traditional fundraising methods.
I love that. It's this great synergy, right, between your mission and the clinic as well. You mentioned this, this narrow mission scope, and it's so interesting because providing these services is almost also reducing the demand on the shelter ecosystem overall as well. Because if you have, a healthy pet, a healthy pet demographic in your area, that's going to reduce the need for these, stray services and these shelters. So I love that. Something I guess as we've been speaking, why aren't all humane societies doing this? Some of the challenges come in terms of like the staffing aspect because you're helping subsidize some of these costs. What does that look like?
I think really it boils down to resources. And I think one of the important things as a nonprofit is to look at the resources that you do have and decide what things you can execute really, really well. Butte Humane Society, way before I was part of it, decided that veterinary services were something that were important. And I'm so glad that they did because I do see the value that that adds to pet owners in our community. But even if what your shelter can provide are these affordable vaccine clinics or spay and neuter services. I think that you're still benefiting the community. And I'm happy when I have other shelter leaders that reach out and say, hey, you know what? We're really interested in turning our veterinary center into something that's larger and is able to impact more animals because we trial and errored it for a very long time. It wasn't always something that was like, oh, this is so easy and why doesn't everybody do this? We had to figure out what was going to work for us. And it took us a while to build up to the level of services that we're adding now. But I think that's one of the reasons that it ultimately did become successful is because we didn't try to do 100% of what we wanted to do at the very beginning. We worked in stages and we grew that and were successful before we moved on to that next stage. But our veterinary center now typically impacts about 10,000 public animals a year through vaccine services, spay and neuter services, exam services. And because we're now able to be full service, that could look like your pet's dental cleaning or they have a mask that needs to be removed. And now you have access to that care. And so I'm really very proud of the impact that we're making for people who just may decide not to seek out care due to costs alone.
That's incredible. I love that. And I'd like to transition a little bit to a little bit of your kind of story with the Humane Society. I think you've been there for over 8 years. Is that correct?
I have.
That's amazing. Can you speak a little bit more to, kind of your journey within the organization and this kind of transition into the executive director role and how that has been?
Absolutely. So, if you can't tell, one of the areas that I'm really passionate about is the veterinary services. And that's partly because when I started at Butte Humane back in 2017, I came on as the veterinary clinic manager. Part of the reason for that was because they wanted to expand their veterinary services and needed somebody with a business development background to come in and do that. So, I came in, I learned very, very quickly. I was hands on as the clinic manager. And I picked up a lot of really valuable skills. The veterinarian that we had as the medical director for basically the first 3 years that I was a part of Butte Humane was my cohort. I mean, we everything that she brought from a veterinary perspective, I brought from a business development perspective, and I think that the clinic largely is where it is now because of everything that I learned from her and how we were able to work together. During COVID is kind of when I had the opportunity to grow through that role into an operations manager role. And so then I was getting to oversee both the shelter side as well as the veterinary center. And I also got to oversee our foster and volunteer programs. And so that gave me a really, I think, unique perspective of the organization because I had kind of worked through those different roles and I understood foundationally and operationally how everything worked and how it all needed to work together for us to be successful. So when the executive director that had been there the entire time that I was there said that she was stepping away from the role, I was panicking a little because my thought process was never that I was going to be in the executive director job. And in fact, I told her pretty often, like, I don't want to do your job. This just seems like a
Like a lot.
Herculean effort all of the time. Then, looking at the reality of how much time I had invested and how well I knew the organization, I felt that I had a unique perspective on being able to go out there and story tell. And I think a lot of fundraising hinges on donors feeling like the leader of the organization really is there for the right reasons and understands the organization. And I thought that that was something that I could bring to the table and fill those shoes. And so I let the board know that I wanted to be considered for the role. And it's a little scary to go through. I was the interim executive director for a while, and that's such a weird limbo to be a part of because you're making decisions as if you're going to be here for 10 more years, but also in 90 days, they could
Yeah, in
say,
the
hey, you
back
know
of your
what? We
mind,
found
you're
this
like,
like
"Yeah,
yeah, this really great outside hire, so maybe it's not going to be you, but it worked out, and honestly, I've been in the executive director role for 2.5 years now. Learning the fundraising and donor relationship management aspect has been a really huge hurdle, but I think back to me as brand new out of the interim role, and I'm really proud of myself, and if I could go back, I would say, "Look, you're gonna get it. I know
I
it
love that."
seems like crazy right now and that you may not get where you wanna be, but we're 2.5 years in, and it feels like a very natural transition, and I didn't know that it was gonna feel that way.
And you know that fundraising piece, it is daunting, right? And as we're speaking to that, we're right around the corner for this big holiday fundraising push. What does that look like for you? And I know that y'all are doing some ads for the first time. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this campaign looks like?
Sure. Our end of year campaign is always typically really big. Historically, we have relied a lot on direct mail, which we are still doing, but I've been really lucky to get partnered up with a local media group in Chico, and they are helping us put together some commercial campaigns. So we've been doing some campaigns around veterinary health tips for the year, but this is going to be the first year that
Nice.
we get to do a holiday specific campaign that talks directly to people through their TV about, when you're thinking of the holiday season, we hope that you're thinking about Butte Humane Society. And the reason that these animals have a chance and get to have their happily ever after is because somebody said, I want to be a part of this and I want to donate and know that this animal is having a great life because of me. And it doesn't always have to happen through adoption. Support to us is huge with volunteers and with monetary support. And we really want people to know that the only reason that these animals have the chance that they have is because they've stepped up and said, this is where I'd like to invest my donation dollars. And we're so fortunate. We are coming off of the end of a thankful campaign where we're doing some commercials that just talk about the gratitude of what has been able to be accomplished because of the donors And for the holiday season, it's people are so generous. And I think sometimes people get hung up a little bit on maybe, "Hey, what I have to give is $10." But what I want the donor to know is that if that's what you have to give is $10 and you choose to give that to Butte Humane Society, it fills our cup. The work that we do is really challenging and it's very emotionally, charged most of the time. And we're so thankful and we're so grateful that that's where you chose to give. And we're going to keep doing the work because you're allowing us to do that.
I love that. And on that note, what is around the corner for the Butte Humane Society, and what's coming up?
So we typically kick off our event season with our Wolfstock Music Festival. So that's going to be coming up in April. More details
Okay.
to come, but we're scheduled for the 19th at the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds again in Chico. It is an all day music and fun festival for all ages. Friendly dogs are welcome to attend. So we've got great bands, a huge vendor market. A lot of our public service agencies are there. So the kids can interact with firefighters and police officers. And we have
Amazing.
an amazing food truck lineup. So that's kind of the kickoff to our event season. After we end the holidays, we quickly switch over into Wolfstock prep mode. And it's something that we look forward to every year.
That's amazing. Well, Emily, thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about your journey within the organization and the incredible impact that y'all are having on the dogs and pets and community out there in Chico. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'd love to have an opportunity to talk about what we do.